Okay, good afternoon. My name is Millery. My firm is M Research Studio, and I'm in New York City. And welcome everybody to the session. The topic is Company of One, and that's basically about intentionally staying small as a company and questioning the idea of growth. And for this topic, I don't know if all of you have the handout, but for this topic, the main resource is very important and very central, which is this book by Paul Jarvis that came out in 2018. That's called Company of One. Why staying small is the next big thing for business. And so this model and these ideas are really mostly from that book, and can apply very much to our field. So I think many of us, I certainly did, assume that the idea is to grow bigger, to have more clients, to have bigger clients, to have more revenue, to hire staff, to have a space, I started in 2014, and I got established. I had a few clients, and I a couple of years into my business, I wanted to expand, and I said, how am I going to do that, and how am I going to get more clients, and what is my strategy? And I had interns, I had contractors, I was about to hire staff, but I was sort of increasingly uncomfortable with certain aspects of working like that. It was sort of taking me more and more away from the craft of doing the actual evaluation work and working on the projects, and it was more running the business and administrative and the headaches of managing the people. And for me, and it's a personality thing, for me, I just don't like managing people. And that was one of the main reasons for me personally why I went with this way of more with this way of Company of One. And have intentionally decided to stay smaller. And it was very liberating at some point to discover that there is this actual model out there that somebody has written about, and that there are tips for this, how to do this. For example, you can be you still want to be efficient, have these replicable processes, structures, templates that you can apply across projects. When you have small capacity, you're only one person, so you still want to be efficient, so you can have enough. You can do several projects and so forth. So in the handout, there are some other tips. There are some advantages, like you get to choose more what you work on, if you're lucky to get opportunities, and you can say no to projects when it's not a good fit. One of the things I wanted to mention, it's not in the book, but this is more specific to our field, that I have tried, is that I am able to have a couple of, one client in particular, a bigger client, that instead of me hiring staff, the client, I've asked the client to hire evaluation staff, a data manager, a half-time evaluation specialist, and the client staff does the implementation of all the evaluation, and my role is more advisory, more sort of guiding the evaluation. So this is one of those things. But it's so really this is a matter of fit, and I think for some of us, it's more, the ambition is, it should be more to run a bigger shop, and you want to be a leader of a group of people, and I think it's great that there are different sizes of independent evaluation consulting companies, and some of us can stay smaller, and that's good. And there are some challenges. One of them is that it can get a little lonely, and you need to have collaborators, you need to have networks. And of course, the other major issue is that you cannot, certainly on your own, bid for bigger projects. So let me stop there and sort of see if people want to weigh in, if anyone has comments, questions.
I just shared a link that Amy Schlotthauer did the IC topic chat on Meet the Pros, and I think it was March. And so if anybody wants to go into a deep dive into this, look at the YouTube video.
Wonderful.
There's a question in the chat, I believe, for you. Can you speak to how you work with subcontracting or collaborating on projects who unfortunately discover needs to grow based on pivotal shifts in the project analysis or deliverables?
Okay, subcontracting. Discover needs. Can you say more about that, Lenore? To make sure I understand the question. So that it sounds like the scope is growing. The project is changing. And you're, collaborating, and you have to kind of, more needs. And you're a collaborator, and how do you, I mean, scope creep happens, and a lot of us are familiar with that. And it can be particularly challenging, I think, for small shops. And, this is where you have to sometimes stay firm and know your boundaries, and know how you define, know how to define what you do, of course. I mean, I wouldn't just, okay, how you work with subcontracting. Okay.
One thing I would do is, if the scope keeps growing, I would go to the client and renegotiate, and then find and tell them I will need to add a subcontractor, and then find a suitable subcontractor to add in. And, if the client isn't willing to do that, then don't let the scope creep.
Exactly. I find that, clients sometimes don't see some of the invisible work that we do, and they just simply don't realize how much we do. So some of it is just communicating to them clearly how much work we do. And then, they understand, that they can't just creep that scope all over the place.
Mary, you pronounce it Mary. I had a boss who was spelled the same way, and she said Mari, so I default that way. Sorry about that, Mary. I have a firm now that's 11 people big, and so we're certainly not a company of one anymore. And I do tell people who are thinking about moving from the one person to the multiple person firms, while you think that's great to scale, you better know that you're really not going to get to do all the work you want to, at least for the foreseeable future, until you get to a point where everything's rolling, and then you can plug back into what you really want to do. But you're going to spend a lot of time with accounting and personnel documentation, and creating human resource manuals, and figuring out health insurance. There's a lot of things to figure out on the firm side. So if you don't want to do that, don't head down that road.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting you said that at some point there may be another point, perhaps where you have other staff handling these other things, that you can go back into sort of craft of evaluation and yourself, and that's pretty interesting. And another point, I guess Gail Barrington was mentioned earlier, but I do bring her up in the handout too, because she has this section in her earlier book about the sort of the fluctuation in size. And I think that that's also normal, that, you know, it's okay to be a company of one. There's the book, Matt is holding it. You know, at some point, and there's a, you know, history of your, you know, development as a company, and, you know, at some point you may be a bigger firm, and at some point you're smaller, and you can, you know, fluctuate, and that can happen. When a bigger project comes, you hire staff, and then, you know, you go back to smaller.
I'd love to get Tessie Katsambas on here now. She started as a company really too, but it was really her, and she bought out her partner, and now Encompass is over 100 people. And so she certainly took that opportunity once things were rolling to come back and be the president and really serve on American Evaluation Association. But to what degree does she get to kind of say, I really want to do program evaluation, I love this, and now I can just plug in and do these very specific things. So all of us.
So Mary, I like that you brought this topic in, and the idea that it's okay to be a company of one. Success doesn't mean that we have to come into this and build a company. That for some of us, and I'm like you, I just want to do the work. I really don't want to manage people. I just like to do the work. I even like to sit and run data.
Mm-hmm.
And I even like to clean data sometimes, because it's enjoyable. So I love that you brought this in and brought this up to the extent that we can all understand that success doesn't necessarily mean that we have to grow these companies.
Yeah.
I know.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, Ann Price once had a firm of several people, and she scaled back to one person working out of her house. That's she talks about that a lot.
Yeah, I really appreciate this session, because in like thinking about starting a business, I was like, I don't want to be a business owner. Like, I don't, you know, I'm not really a businessy person, and realizing that there's more than one way to have a business. And this is definitely like the ideal way for me, because I don't want to have employees. I think one day, like, it would be nice to be big enough to have subcontractors and like to mentor students and that kind of a thing. But I definitely don't want to have employees and all of that. So it's nice to know that there's other people out there that kind of are running their business in a similar way.